would we prepare locally for the 2018 midterm national elections? For example, redistricting efforts.
I'll start off on this one if that's cool, panel. So 2018 this is it, guys. We can march, we can cry out, but 2018 is our next opportunity to overthrow the government. That's truly at stake. So we got to get organized right now. And the most important thing you can do, whether you're in Northern Kentucky or Ohio, is vote. We are shameful in midterm elections. Republicans can just walk into office because Democrats don't organize and don't get out to vote. So the first priority is to make sure that you're registered to vote, to make sure your friends and family vote as well. Because these are the stakes. The gerrymandering that we all bemoan, 3 people are responsible for drawing those gerrymandered state legislature lines in Ohio. It's the governor, it's the attorney general, it's the secretary of state. All 3 of those offices are up for grabs in 2018. We have got to be organized and disciplined and start right now to identify the candidates that we're passionate about and to support them. And to Chris's point, that is not tweeting and posting on Facebook. There is room for that, and that is important. But to create a real change in public opinion, to create real groundswell of support, you've got to identify those candidates, you've got to reach out to them, and you've got to start knocking on doors, making telephone calls, and contributing to those candidates so that we can redraw lines to make them more competitive. There is not a single competitive congressional district in the state of Ohio. Not a single one. There's an app floating around social media where you can type in your zip code and it'll show you your nearest congressional swing district. And the one for Cincinnati is in southern Indianapolis. It's not even in Ohio. Then the next one from that is in Michigan. We've got to demand better from our leaders. And not only is those statewide elected officials up for grabs in 2018, but so is the entire state house and also congressional campaigns. So identify who you support and start working for them. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
I'll say I have a lot of feelings on national politics. Last year I came off of a United States Senate campaign where the person I worked for would have been the only millennial in the United States Senate. And we weren't successful, even though millennials are the largest generation in the history of our country now. He was unsuccessful. And a lot of my frustration came from the whole kind of wait your turn mentality that unfortunately a lot of people in politics have, because unfortunately for people who look like me, their turn won't come. And so what we need to do to prepare for the 2018 elections is think about who our representation is. There's not a lot of people who are in politics who look like me, who come from the places I come from. I think we sometimes talk about people who, they don't get out and vote. We have to give them things to vote for. I'm a strong believer in that. We can't make people's issues. Sometimes you put an issue in front of people, you just for the life of you can't figure out why they haven't put it or why they don't care. Well, if you're trying to figure out where your next meal's coming from, you don't give 2 craps about climate change. And that's what I'm trying. Climate change is important, but it doesn't affect you if you're in poverty. So we need to reach voters where they are, and I think that's the most effective way to prepare for the 2018 election. So we're thinking about who's running, to Aftab's point. What does that representation look like, and what kind of support do they have? I worked for the finest United States Senate candidate that came along in a long time, and he couldn't get elected because he was too young. And so that type of mentality has to change. So we have to look at, who are the candidates? What are the issues we're putting before people that they care about? We can't, unfortunately, in some issues in our city, in our region, there's just some things that people can't make the connection. They don't understand how this is going to affect their bottom line, or they don't understand how this is going to make their lives better. And maybe it can, but we have to change the way that we talk with our voters and talk with people. We can't assume that everybody's in this political bubble that all of us are in. And so it comes down to how are we engaging people where they live and meeting people where they are. what are the candidates that's coming down the pipeline, and also how are you supporting those candidates? If you don't have money to give, that's okay, but are you knocking on doors for those candidates? Are you getting out? Because the people have the power. We've had it all. It's like the Wizard of Oz. We've always had the power. We just didn't realize it.
I would just like to add, it was actually, I think it was on Channel 12 News a couple of weeks ago about a class that's being offered at the state of Washington State, and it's a class on learning what is BS. Learning basically how do you define BS and really define, and know what it is and what's not BS. And to be honest with you, I believe the people who are winning elections right now are really good at delivering BS. And so part of that is that there are too many people, the electorate, who are falling for that. There are too many of the electorate who are not asking questions and not examining the facts. So when somebody delivers something that sounds, oh, I like that, that sounds really good, and there's nothing backing it up, it's just a soundbite, I think the voters, you all, need to ask the question, what do you mean by that, and how do you propose doing that? There's just too much BS going on right now, and that's how our current president got elected, and it's how a lot of people are getting elected. It's not just an election, it's also in marketing and advertising. We need to be smarter.
The only thing I'll add is our house flooded the summer before the election last year, and we were buying new furniture the week before the election, and the store had a deal that if more than 60% of the voters turned out in Ohio, then all the furniture you bought was free. And it just got me thinking that less than 60% of the people in the state of Ohio who are registered will likely vote. And so to Aftab's point, whatever we can do to encourage voter turnout, which is, again, talking to people you know who may have an excuse, that is going to have absolutely the biggest impact. Most of these districts in Ohio, the real race is the primary. And so if it's a Republican district and the race is the primary, then it's not who can appeal to the most voters in the district, it's who can appeal to the most Republican voters in the district. So you end up getting these far alt-right candidates who win because they're competed against who could be the most conservative, because they're going to win the general. So we have to redraw the districts, and we're going to do that by electing Democrats in 2018.